Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Yeah, guilt is poison. It'll ruin you. But fear of guilt is also poison. It also ruins you. Which means that we have to find a third solution. Because on the one hand, if we make a choice that makes us feel guilty, then we're guilty and miserable. But on the other hand, if we make a choice that makes us miserable, but we're making the choice because we don't want to feel guilty, we're also miserable. So either way, guilty or not guilty, we're miserable. And this is where we have to get clear, especially at your age, of what's the difference between my responsibilities and my attachments. This is why in Indian traditional teachings, we've got what they call these 4 ashrams of life. So your student years ashram is called Brahmacharya. In those years, your dharma is study, learn in school, learn about yourself, learn about the world, learn about God, learn about each other, learn. And then you're in Grihast ashram phase, which are your householder years. Your dharma is put food on the table, educate your kids, make a good life, take care of your parents, raise your children correctly. And then you move into what's called the Vanprast phase of life, which is our kids are grown, married, with jobs of their own. We've earned enough. We'll be fine for the rest of our lives. No need to keep earning. Now is the time to start slowly unhooking ourselves from all of these attachments. And then, of course, the sannyas phase of life. But it's difficult because, of course, there's attachments and there's Maya, and it's easy to believe that our responsibilities continue to extend. And remember that you've got free will. There's no right decision or wrong decision. Nobody is going to say, thou shalt make this decision or that decision. Thou shalt pick up your grandchildren every Friday and take them home for the weekend, or you shall not. There's no right or wrong answer. It's entirely up to you. But the only thing to be clear on is, what's my ultimate goal? Once you know what the ultimate goal is, it becomes a lot easier to make decisions. And it doesn't mean, by the way, that you cut yourself off completely. Be a wonderful father. Be a wonderful grandfather. It's beautiful. Love is the stuff life is made of. But you're going to have to figure out how much of that involvement and enmeshment and attachment is love for love's sake, and how much of it is attachment and enmeshment and drama and Maya and all of that. And at some point you're going to extricate yourself from that. Whether it's because you leave your body or at some point before that. But the reason that we're given these 4 phases is so that we can be ready for when we do leave our body, so that we've actually attained the reason that we were born, which is to actually know ourselves, to know the truth about the self, which is hard to do when you're holding down a full-time job and kids are in school and there's demands in the house and you're taking care of your parents also frequently in the same house. It's hard to be really focused on a spiritual path in that phase. And that's why we have these other 2 phases after that, in which you're supposed to slowly, it's the gently peel off the Band-Aid rather than rip it off. The rip it off is you stay attached until you die. And then at that moment, it's the universe that comes in and essentially rips off that really stuck Band-Aid. And it hurts. Or you spend those years slowly, finding yourself that isn't father, that isn't grandfather, that isn't husband, but that is soul, that is spirit, that is consciousness, that is eternal, that is not the one who is just retired from this, but is the one who was never born, who's never going to die, who has no age, who has no race, who has no religion. To find that truth in the self. Because you want to find that before you die. It's why you were born. So at some point along the way, make sure that you find that. The exact way is up to you. As I always say, the universe is incredibly patient. You want to do it this life? Great. You don't want to do it this life? No problem. You can do it next life. It's okay. The universe is very patient. At some point, you will extricate yourself from it. And you'll find that freedom. And whenever that time is right, you'll feel it. You'll find it. There's a great story of a young man who's living in an ashram with his guru. And he says to his guru, he's just about to officially get initiated into monastic renunciation, into sannyas. But he says to his guru, I'm young, I've never really lived, and so before I take this actual decision of really dedicating my life to spirituality, I think I should go and just take a few years and kind of see what it's all about, just so that I don't have any regrets later on. So the guru says, all right, go. So the man goes, and 5 years pass, 10 years pass. The man is now married and he has kids, and one day there's a knock on the door. And his wife answers, and there's an old man at the door who asks for the husband. And he comes to the door, and immediately he recognizes his guru. And the guru says, "What's happening? What are you doing?" And he says, "God," and the guru says, "Come, it's not 5 years, it's been 10 years. And the man says, "Oh, but now, Guruji, I can't come. The kids are young. Who's going to look after them? My wife, she's young also. So much is needed. Our business is just beginning to take off. Just give me another few years. Then I'll come, I promise." So the guru goes away. 5 years pass. 10 years pass. The guru comes back and he opens the door, and he knocks on the door, and the door is opened by a young man. And he asks for the young man's father. And the young man tells how his father has passed away. But the guru notices that there's this dog in the house barking. And he recognizes in the dog his disciple. So he says to the young man, "Do you mind if I just play with your dog for a little while?" The young man says, "No problem." So the guru says to the dog, "What are you doing? What happened?" And the man says, he says, "Now finally come with me." And the man says, I can't. Don't you see they've lost their father. They're still young. They're only in their early 20s. What are they going to do? As the dog, I can protect them. Anybody who tries to hurt them, I will bite them. I will bark. I will be their protector. That's why I came back as a dog, so I could protect them. And just give me another few years. Just let them get older and stronger, and then they won't need me. And so the guru says, the guru goes away. He comes back many years later, and he knocks on the door. And now there's 2 young kids who he sees are the grandchildren. And they let him in. He asks the dog. The dog obviously has long since died. And the guru can see, though, in his mind's eye, that his disciple has become a snake and is guarding the family safe, that he's wedged into a hole in the wall by the family safe. And so he says to these kids, look, go inside. Go to where the safe is. In that wall, you will find a snake. Don't kill it, but just break its back and then bring it to me. So the kids, they go in. They tell their parents what the old man at the door has said. So they go, and they go to where the safe is, and they find the snake, and they do just as the guru said. They broke his back. And they bring it to the guru in a bag. And the guru says, thank you, and he takes it, and he takes the snake, and he slings it over his shoulder. And he says, enough. Now you're coming with me. There's no end. There's no end. You went out for a few years. Here we are, 3 lifetimes of yours later. Because with each lifetime, you actually got more and more stuck. More and more stuck. Now you're going to come with me, and I will make you free. So I love that story because it's such a beautiful illustration of how so many of our minds think when we think about going onto a spiritual path. First I'll do this, then I'll do that, then I'll meditate. Then I'll actually dedicate myself. And by the way, it has nothing to do with vows of monastic renunciation. There's nothing in any of our scriptures or teachings that says you must leave the world, you must leave relationships, nothing like that. In fact, Many, many, many of the sages, the rishis, were married, were householders. So there's nothing that says you must leave that, but just that internally, your direction, your focus, your attention, your intention must be your spiritual path. And you can do that in the world. It just requires priority. What's your focus? What's your priority? We've all only got the same number of hours every day. How are you going to fill them? You can only think one thought at a time. What thought are you going to have? What are you going to do with your mind? What are you going to do with your time? That's for each of us to decide. But if you know what your goal is, then it helps you make those decisions a lot more easily.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Alaya, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. How can we keep bouncing back from the rejection of loved ones? Rejection in general is hard. As anyone who's been on social media knows, some random person, you have no idea who they are, write something nasty about you online, right? And it ruins people's days. For some people, it ruins a lot more than their day. Now you think, they don't even know who the person is. I've had so many conversations with people who are very upset about something that was posted about them online. You say, well, who posted it? They don't know. They just know the handle. They don't even know who the person is. And yet, their day, their week is ruined. I have so many people come who are upset about things that a colleague in the workplace has said about them, or a way that a colleague is treating them. Not even someone who's a good friend. Just another random person who happens to occupy the same office. But they say something rude about us or rude to us. And it really hurts. The reason they end up telling me is because they're still suffering from it. They're looking to overcome that suffering. And these are rejections from people we don't even know, or we only kind of know. Then you think about rejection of our loved ones, from our loved ones. And that really stings. Stings in a whole other way than rejection from random people on social media or random people in the office. Because we we have this idea that our loved ones really know us. And so if they reject us, then it feels like the very core of who we are is wrong, is bad, that we've been seen to the core and rejected. The way through this is to realize that, guess what? Even your loved ones are human. They're not perfect. I mean, we're all divine at the core of who we are, but the divine never rejects anyone. So it's not the divine in them that's rejecting you. God never rejects. So the part of them that's rejecting you is the part that is very identified with their human incarnation, with their ego, with their role, with their story, with their needs. And that's usually what it's about, is we're not properly fulfilling what someone else's needs are, and so they reject. For example, common example, in Indian societies for sure, and certainly in other societies as well, you have a situation where you've got a family of profession. And we're still a week before Diwali. It's the time to buy stock and earplugs. So, say you've got a professional family, and everybody's a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, a business person. And then one of the children, the son or the daughter, decides that even though they're doing fantastically in school, they're getting straight A's in math, in science, maybe they got admitted to a top university also, or a top graduate program also, but they decide they're not interested. Maybe they want to put on a backpack and come to India. Maybe they want to join the Peace Corps. Maybe they want to write music or write poetry, or do any one of hundreds of other possibilities. And what you end up with all too frequently is a rejection. If not by the entire family, certainly by members of the family. The parents, the grandparents are going to reject them for the choice they're making. Now, that's not the divine in them rejecting the son or daughter for wanting to join the Peace Corps, or wanting to join an ashram, or wanting to make music or art. It's the ego self that says, oh my God, what am I going to tell the neighbors? Oh my God, now nobody's going to be jealous of us at the next wedding when everybody's talking about what their kids are doing. And I have to say, well, mine's writing poetry, or has gone off to some other country and is doing something that they're not making any money for. So what are the neighbors going to think? And that ego aspect causes people to reject their own loved ones. I've seen it all too many times. Children are hurt, parents are hurt, parents feel rejected, like we've done everything for them. We gave them everything, we sent them to the best schools. How dare they? And it's so interesting because the sense of entitlement with which they say, how dare they, is as though somehow your duty in providing your children with the best that you have is somehow to be reciprocated by them having the profession you want them to have, that it's actually a bargain rather than selfless parenting. That it's, I'll do this for you, but then I'll do it for you for 18 years or 20 years or 25 years. But then you're going to spend the next 50 years of your life doing something that you may really not want to do just because it's what I want you to do. And so you see a lot of times family members rejecting other family members for these sorts of decisions. And if you're on the receiving end of that rejection, realize they're not rejecting your soul. They're not rejecting the beauty of you. It's just that your choices have threatened their ego. They feel hurt, and so they reject. But realize that it is the human in them, the ego in them, that is causing them to reject you. Not that there's something wrong with you. We see it in situations with homosexuality or anything other than just straight heterosexuality, where so many times, I've seen it so many times, young people don't want to get married to a member of the opposite sex because they know that they're not attracted to them. But there is family pressure, societal pressure, that says you must do this. And so in many cases they do, and then they're miserable. But in the cases where they don't, again, you sadly see this rejection. As they honor the truth of themselves, they suffer rejection from those whose ego systems are too fragile to face the neighbors and explain why their son or daughter hasn't gotten married yet. So if you're being rejected by family members, realize there's nothing wrong with you. There's also nothing wrong with them. They're just human. They're also just doing the best they can. But what it means is that some aspect of who you are is threatening an aspect of their fragility, and they're not able to accept it, which means that they're not able to accept you. But that doesn't mean that there's something actually wrong with you, or that you should feel shame. What it means is you've got a special challenge, which is you're going to need to find your self-love and your self-acceptance and your self-worth in spite of, rather than with the assistance of, your family member. Usually in a best case scenario, we have family members who tell us, you're wonderful. You can do anything. You're beautiful, you're perfect, you're divine. And that, it teaches us to love ourselves. It teaches us to value ourselves. But in the times where we don't have that, we have the added challenge of finding that self-worth and self-value and self-love independent of that loved one. Which isn't impossible, by the way, at all. It just sends us inside. Or maybe it sends us into different communities, to a sangha, a spiritual community, where we will be accepted. New loved ones who will accept us. So if you find that you're having that happen, first and most importantly, no shame. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Number 2, have compassion for your loved one who has rejected you. It hurts them just as much as it hurts you. But they don't have the inner courage, flexibility, adaptability, skill to handle the current situation. Maybe they will in the future. Pray for them. But have compassion in the meantime. And number 3, make sure that you fill yourself with people, with a community, with teachings, with a spiritual practice that teaches you how to love yourself, that teaches you how to accept yourself, that teaches you how to value yourself, independent of what that loved one may be saying.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. The karma of a newborn child who dies, or child who dies in your utero. The question is, how could they have possibly accumulated any karma, the results of which would lead to their death? If they haven't done anything yet, they haven't even lived one day or 1 week, how could they possibly have done something to result in their death? Well, there's a lot of pieces here. One piece is, of course, we don't look only at this lifetime. Karma takes us back through different lifetimes. Now, we've got 3 different types of karma. Prarabdha karma, Sanchit karma, and Kriyaman karma. And I won't go into all of the philosophical differences of them, but basically what they are is karma that is long-term, as in an action you did in a past life. The fruit will be born in some future life. Think of it like a trust set up for you when you were born that you can access in your next life. It's like that. Then you've got karma that is bearing fruit in this life. Today, tomorrow, next week, last week. And then you've got immediate karma, bearing fruit right now. Typical example of that would be a bar fight, right? I hit you, you hit me back. Immediate karma. And it's over then. I hit you, you hit me, we both go home with black eyes, but our karmic stuff is done. But the rest of it comes actually from past lives as well as from this life, whether it's bearing fruit this life or not. The seeds were planted in past lives as well as this one. So we come into this birth carrying a karmic bank account. So that's one piece of this, is that newborn child or unborn child actually came with a karmic package that's in existence even before they do any action this life. But then there's another component to it, which is karma does not only work in one direction. So it's not only what you did in the past is now bearing fruit today. There's also situations in which things happen today for a purpose in the future. So for example, if you look at things in our history like the Holocaust or 9/11 or any one of innumerable moments in history where a very large number of really innocent people, through no fault of anything that they had done, certainly not in this life, suffered immeasurably at the hands of a few. We think of it not only in a, well, they had some collective karma that bear fruit at this time, but rather as their souls, their individual souls on some cosmic level agreed to have this in this birth in order to give a lesson, give a teaching, catalyze a change in our society, in our world. And so sometimes, if you're looking for a karmic reason, almost all of the time it's from the past. But every once in a while, there's a result that comes before the cause. There's something that happens that we think is a result, but actually is the cause, and the result is only later to come. And so the measures, for example, that went into place post-World War II to ensure that these sorts of things would never happen again, the measures that went into place against terrorism, these sorts of things, and just on a collective level, the way that people came together. If you hear stories of how people came together in New York, people of every race, every religion, every color, every background, the selflessness, what people did for each other, that a week earlier they wouldn't have done. A week earlier, a beggar said, "Hey, do you have a quarter?" And they walked right by like a good New Yorker. But after 9/11, they were taking these people into their homes. It cracked open the hearts of not only people in New York, but people all over the world. So when we think about karma, don't always only look back. Sometimes look forward. Well, okay, if there's no explanation in the back other than just saying, well, it must have been some past life that we don't know about, maybe look to the future. What is it catalyzing? What needed to shift in the world due to which the universe made this thing happen so that there was a domino effect on other things. And the last piece with regard to young children, whether an unborn, newborn, or even a teenager. People who die long before we would say they've reached a ripe old age. Interestingly and tragically, they almost always seem to be the ones who everyone says they were like an angel. I mean, we have so many people come from all over the world here to do the final rites of loved ones. And whenever it was a child, it's always this boy, this girl. They were an angel. They were the one who everyone loved, everyone depended on, the one who helped everyone. They almost always seem like these enlightened beings in the bodies of 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. And the reason for that is when you look at lifetimes of karma, and when you look at the fact that ultimately the highest goal, according to the Hindu tradition, is to no longer have to come back in a body, but rather to be that soul that merges into the divine, like that drop merges into the ocean. To no longer have to do this I am separate from God drama in our bodies. But that when we drop the body, for the soul just to go back to the divine and not to have to keep coming in what we call this wheel of samsara. And with children, one of the reasons that so frequently they were these angels is because in their last life they were almost done. They were almost at that point of not having to take another body. But there was maybe some remaining karmic debt, small, minimal. It only took them a few days, a few weeks, a few years to finish that. And so they finished it and then they were done. And even though it feels like a tragedy to us who have lost them, in the scheme of things, in the big picture of things, they're done. It's a celebration, it's a blessing. They no longer had to be in the body. They could drop it and be done and just merge back into the divine. So that's the third way of understanding the very young or even unborn child's karma. And as far as the family, don't think of it as a punishment. We oversimplify things as though somehow this is a reward, this is a punishment. But that is not how it is. We receive that which is going to be most conducive to us to take the next step on our karmic journey. And maybe the grief of the loss of this child is exactly the most conducive thing for you to get closer to God. Because remember, we're not here to get everything we want. That's not the promise of human birth. That's not the goal of human birth. There's no scripture I know of in which God says, be a good person and I'll give you everything you want. Just ask. Anything you want, I'll give it to you. It's never that. It's not about that. It's about getting closer to God. And sometimes tragedy is that brings us closer to God. And so I would never, ever want that family to think that they had done something wrong and were being punished, but rather simply to say, okay, this has happened, which means that this is the most conducive way for us to take the next step to God. So let's take it. Let's take it. We're in this tragedy. Let's get closer to God. Let's let this tragedy break our hearts so that they can then be open to the divine. And that doesn't make it any easier, I know. But unfortunately, that was also never promised. So we do the very best with the situations that get presented to us, knowing that each one is an opportunity for us to walk closer to God.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. How do we handle divorce when we've been utterly betrayed? As quickly as possible? To extricate ourselves as quickly as possible from that situation? We take all of that which happened as a lesson. We were not betrayed because we were bad or wrong or somehow deserved to be betrayed. We were betrayed because someone else, in their karmic journey, was so full of ignorance, of fear, of confusion, of desire, that we were not the first things in their mind, that more important than our feelings were their own fears or desires or confusions. But that doesn't mean that we don't deserve peace and love. So we take what happened as a lesson, because we can learn so much in every situation. We thank God that we are out of it. And we do whatever we need to do to clean our hearts of the anger, of the pain, of the grudges. Because although with a divorce you may be legally free of the person who betrayed you, if you carry what they did into the present and the future, well, you're essentially still married, even though on paper you're divorced. And this is true not only in a situation of divorce in a marriage, this is true in every situation. If we carry the pain of the past into the present, into the future, we are the ones responsible. Someone else hurt us in the past. They were responsible. But if we carry that pain into the present and the future, we have become the perpetrator of our own pain. We have become the perpetrator of our own situation. And we don't want to do that. Why would you create more difficulty for yourself? You've suffered enough. So we do whatever work needs to be done, spiritual work, psychological work, to really be able to let go and to move on. The mind loves to go to the past. It's the nature of the mind. It always goes to the past, either with longing for the good old days or in frustration at how we did something. We wish that we had done it differently. We regret it. Or in anger and grudges, pain over what's happened. But that's where the mind likes to go. It also goes in the future, typically in an anxiety way. Sometimes we envision beautiful things for the future, but most of our minds tend to go into all of the awful things that could happen. And even if we're envisioning something beautiful, through that we're missing the beauty of the present moment. So that's the nature of the mind, is to go to the past and the future. It's why we meditate, or one of the reasons. It trains the mind to be in the present. If I'm with my breath, I'm right here. And if I'm right here, then I can experience joy, peace, freedom. If I'm not here, I can't experience any of that. So engage in spiritual practices, yagnas, pujas, meditation, arti, come to the ashram, go on retreat. Do whatever you need to do spiritually to catalyze this new phase in your life. If you find that you're really struggling and that's not solving at all, do some psychological work. Go to therapy. Talk to someone about it. Get some psychological tools and techniques to work through the pain, the trauma. But ultimately, the goal is one, which is move on. Move forward. Your husband may have harmed you in the past. You've taken the steps to free yourself of that through this divorce. For God's sakes, don't divorce him and then bring him back into your bed, back into your mind. Leave him there. Take the lessons, but leave the pain. And I know that it sounds a lot easier said than done. But I speak as someone who personally has been blessed, been gifted with the opportunity to let go, to forgive past pain, past trauma. And it absolutely can be done, regardless of what someone else has done to you. So you've cut the cords legally Now cut them energetically, regardless of what he may do. Because the beautiful thing about tension, as I always say, is it only requires one person to let go for all the tension to dissipate. If I'm holding one end of a cord and you're holding the other end of the cord and we're pulling and there's a lot of tension in the rope, it doesn't actually need both of us to let go. It just needs one of us to let go. And then all the tension is gone. So if he doesn't let go, no problem. You let go of that rope so that you can be tension-free. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.